Welcome. This is a tutorial on translating this rough sketch of a site elevation into a beautifully drafted pair of existing and proposed elevations. This is for an ADA renovation for a client in a wheelchair. And if you are in my drafting class, you have a lot of information on this project. So just a couple key points. This is an existing house, and there's 80 feet of gravel from the edge of a concrete apron in front of a garage all the way out to a paved road. This is completely inaccessible. And there's an existing patio, which we see a corner of here, that is also completely inaccessible. The only way to get to it is to go up steps. Clearly, our wheelchair person can't do that. A ramp cannot be added without blocking the garage entrance. And once you're on the patio, it's too small for physical therapy. And there are additional steps to get into the house. So this house simply isn't safe or accessible yet. That is our puzzle. So this is where we start. So I am going to move the drawing up a little bit. All right, so what's happening here? This is what I call a field sketch. It shows the data that we need to turn this into a drafted drawing. So the ink in red is not something you want to put on the finished drawing, but it helps you understand how to produce this drawing. As well, we can change this note and we can change the title. So in the finished drawing, you're going to see a nicely drafted version of this existing site elevation. Directly above it, you're going to see an equally beautifully rendered site elevation of the proposed changes being represented as a site elevation. I want to point this out. This little diagram helps us understand what we're looking at. This project is actually a real-world project. The address and the client names are not shared here to protect their privacy, but the foothills of Colorado are here. East is in this direction, north is up. And so we are standing with our back to the foothills, looking east. And what we see is the side of an attached garage. We see a little bit of a patio sticking out. This segment of the house is a bedroom wing that pops out. This actually extends back to this red dotted line. And we focus more on a site plan and a proposed patio plan in earlier drawings. If you're in my class, you have access to all of those. If you are not working with that whole set of drawings, take this on faith. We're going to show all of this and then add in the renovations and show all of that. Couple key points on this existing drawing. The highest point of the existing house roof is 14 feet from the ground. We are going to draw this ground line as if it is horizontal and flat using our T-square. At 1 inch equals 20 feet. This is a small scale, and we're not going to show a lot of detail because we can't. But know this, the back of the house, the ground has actually sloped down a little bit. This is a 10-foot wall. But the front of the house, which is on the north, is actually only 9 feet from the ground. So you need to know that. And then this is 14 feet. And this roof peak continues across because of gables. So you need to know all of this to understand this drawing. The back of the yard behind the house is rough ground. This is a concrete foundation with a house built on top. To the 12-foot dimension end here is a paved apron in front of this attached garage. So we do have pavement that ends right here. The rest of this is gravel, and then we get to a paved road. Let's also look at the eaves. The actual eaves on the house are 18 inches typical. You can show this at 1/20th scale. You just need a sharp pencil. And let's look at this. Step up 2 risers at 4.5 inches each from driveway to existing patio surface through the existing gate. So the surface of the existing patio is about 9 inches above grade. These numbers are slightly approximate. The owner and I had to actually measure all of this. The as-built drawings were not as helpful to us as we would have hoped because of their age and the way they were cut up to be turned into something called microfiche. So we pieced this together and dug holes to look at how deep the slab went under the patio. So that's where some of these numbers come from. So again, work with this drawing. I'll give you a moment. I suggest you screenshot it if you want a copy of this. If you're in the course, there's also a PDF in the course shell that shows this, and you were given this as a handout. So this is our starting point. This note, I usually suggest you need it when you're penciling this all out, but it probably is a better note to put on your proposed site plan. And you'll see why as this drawing continues. But there's going to be a new ramp that will be 12 feet long. The new patio is going to be 1 foot above grade. And then the ramp is going to run down to grade and then follow grade. There's going to be some kind of ADA pathway, ADA compliant surface all the way to the paved road. So this is useful as you're constructing this drawing, but you can see this note in red. Let's move it to the proposed site plan. It will be a better fit there. Now let's find our next page. If you would like a screenshot, go ahead and take it. The tools that are being used to construct this. This is your first drawing actually on vellum. The earlier drawings on this project were constructed on trace, and that allowed us to perfect those drawings as beginning drafters and getting the hang of your tools, figuring out how it all works. By the time you're working on this drawing, you've got some of those basic skills under your belt already. The tools that you need is an engineer's scale that will show you that 1/20th scale. This is a little French curve. It's the neatest way to draw. This is the culvert with a driveway bridged over it, just made out of road base and gravel. And then this is where the paved road starts. So let's blow this up now. And again, you can pause the video if you haven't screenshot yet. But let's go ahead and blow this up. So what happened here? This is an 11 by 17 sheet of vellum. This is a 1/2 inch margin, a 1/2 inch margin, 1/2 inch at the bottom, 3/4 at the left. That allows for binding. And partially this is covered, there's trace, it's a little messy. And then what I did was you figure out when you take away a 1/2 inch at the bottom and the top, what's left is a 10-inch deep window. And then when you take away a 1/2 inch, an 1.5 inches for the title block, and a 3/4 inch, this adds up to 2 inches. This is, roughly 3/4 of an inch. So if this started off 18 inches wide as a sheet of vellum, you're down to about 15 inches. So your drawing area is about 10 inches tall by about 15 inches wide. On this space, we're going to fit 2 drawings. So one thing you can do is work with guidelines. Divide your sheet in half. You've got 5 inches above, 5 inches below. That's, as you can see, this 5-inch window is plenty of space for this little drawing. So where do we put the ground line? A good idea for the ground line is to take this 5 inches, divide it in half again. If you put your ground line about 2.5 inches up from the bottom of your drawing area, this will land in a good spot. You could put it a little higher if you want to, but remember, we have a ground line. We have to fit dimensions underneath it. We have to fit a title with a scale. We also have to allow for a 14-foot tall roof. The trees are taller. You see the trees on that handout, give or take around 25 feet tall. And then we want to allow space so that we have room to not feel like the 2 drawings are smack on top of each other. We want them placed on our sheet nicely. I'm still starting the layout on the vellum, but just know that if you divide the vellum in half lengthwise, you can put your ground line in the center of each half and it will fit beautifully. Next step, we want to focus on what's happening with the existing house, landscaping features, the driveway, until we get to the paved road. And we want that centered left to right on your drawing, on your sheet. So this is something you can simply look at and make your executive decision. We do not need to show the whole site. The backyard is quite large on this site, but we're not, most of us, changing anything. Focus on the house, the space between the house and the paved road. Those are your primary focuses in this drawing. So let's peek at this. If I blow it up once more, look at this. Here's the edge of the title block. And then this is about where we're going to start the drawing. It's about 2 inches in from the edge of the title block. That gives us plenty of space to show some of the backyard, to show the house, to show the rest of the property, the swale, which is a drainage ditch. The driveway runs across the top of that to where the paved road starts. And then it's going to leave us another couple inches before we run out of paper. So you can see how this produces a nicely framed drawing that allows space for the title block, the border of the sheet, binding margin at the left. Everything is going to fit easily. Now, you have 2 ways to construct this. You can work from the prior drawing, the handout, if you will, and locate everything. Or, again, if you're in my drafting class, you've already got an existing site plan at this same scale. You can use that as an underlay. Simply rotate the site plan so you see the house on the right, drive and road on the left. So you'll just be rotating it around and you can slide it underneath this drawing. And if you do that, you can then make these vertical marks where everything is. You don't have to measure it. If you don't have that site plan, you go back to the handout, which hopefully you screenshotted, or you can pull it if you're in my drafting class right from the course shell. If you were in studio, you've already got the handout, and use that to construct these vertical lines. And then you start this drawing. You'll be able to produce this I promise you, in about half an hour. Then these lines are carried up as guidelines to the upper half of the sheet. And this tells you where everything is going to be in the upper half. We're ready to look at that. Let's go to the next sheet, with one exception. Each of you should have a French curve in your drafting kit. By the way, these French curves are based on the Bézier curve, which is based on Bézier's use of mathematics. That same Bézier mathematics is used in the algorithms if you're working with computer-aided drafting. The same mathematics that generate this drafting tool is behind the buttons you push if you're drafting online in something like AutoCAD or something like Revit. This is the same mathematics. How cool is that? So this shape I used to create this curve, knowing that the drainage ditch is about 2 to 3 feet deep at its deepest point. And then that same curve I reversed because the road crowns. The owner and I did not measure the road. It's probably somewhere between 30 and 50 feet wide. You can approximate that here, and you don't even have to show the whole road. But use your French curve to make this beautiful and make the crown of the road mirror the depth of the drainage ditch. Now let's go to the next page. Now you can see, I'll shrink this down in a minute so you can screenshot the whole thing. Here is, again, a blow up of the existing. Guidelines are still present on the page. You now see the ground line for the proposed. The guidelines have told us how to position it left to right on the page. Using the handout from our first screen, I made the existing house match here. The trees match. The drainage ditch will match. It's not shown yet. This is the new part. So how did we do this? You need your section 1. If you're in my class, you've already got that. You've got a handout, you've already drawn it at 1/4 inch scale, and you've got it in the course shell. What's happening here is this is a new patio. We enlarged the existing patio. We took away this little brick wall, added 10 feet. The patio is now 26 feet long. 8 feet of it are hidden here by the attached garage wall. The entry of the house is here. You can see there's a very faint guideline. The patio also has to now be at the level of the house entry, so it's accessible. So it's 1 foot above grade to loosely correspond to where we identified the house entry as being. There's a 12-foot ramp because ADA requirements state that for a 1-foot rise in elevation, you need a 12-foot run to slope back to grade. We see that right here. This is that 26-foot ramp that starts right here where there's a very faint guideline. It's now 1 foot above grade with a 12-foot ramp back down to grade. This is the design you have for this project in my drafting studio. Some of you might have changed this. If so, make this match your design. This gives you a sense of a railing. In the design I've given you, we are using planters as edge protection for the patio. Our client used to love gardening before he had to migrate into a wheelchair. Our client has a use of his right hand a little bit. He can reach down. His family measured what he could reach. We came up with 26-inch tall planters. He can get his hands in the dirt. The planters are very massive. They're not going to tip over. If his wheelchair wheels hit the planters, they're not going anywhere. He'll be safe. This gives him a beautiful garden right on his front porch. That's where the height came from. How did we get the columns and the roof? If you go back and you look at your section 1, this column is shown very, very clearly. You can see the whole patio because in section 1, we do not show the attached garage. For the purpose of this drawing, this column at 1/20th scale from the surface of the patio to the bottom of that beam right there is 12 feet tall. The column from the ground would be 13 feet tall. In this elevation, it appears to stop at the surface of the patio. So a 12-foot column, another 2 feet for this glulam beam and roof assembly. And if you draw this carefully, when we're inking this, hopefully you'll see this, the very top is just now a touch taller than the roof peak, which is 14 feet. This is 15 feet. Pretty cool, right? How far back does it go? Use your 8-foot mark on your engineer's scale at the 1/20th scale. Measure back 8 feet. There's going to be this patio continuing back 8 feet. Measure up 10 1/2 feet. That's how tall the column is back here. Now you can draw your roof, but we only see part of it because it disappears behind the attached garage. See that? Isn't that cool? Stops right about there. This is the edge of the attached garage. Therefore, you can pencil this all in, but when you ink it, it stops right there. We've transferred the trees. What's really cool is the ramp now rolls past the aspen trees. I think we're ready to keep developing. Let's go to the next slide. Ah, before we do that, let me shrink this so you can screenshot it. Let me move the thumbnail. There you go. You can now see the note. And feel free to screenshot this or pause the video and read the notes. We're basically covering this material with my voice. And let's go to the next slide. So now the guidelines are starting to disappear, and you see this is developing a little bit further. Let me pull this down, and you can screenshot this. I'm now going to blow it up a little bit. So let's center our drawing. See the triangle I'm using, the T-square, French curve. And this is all laid out with T-square and triangle so that the horizontals are really horizontal and the verticals are really vertical. The guidelines are faint, but you can now see that French curve was used for the drainage ditch here, and now it's been used on the proposed. The road crown is being shown. You can see because of those guidelines how the proposed is perfectly aligned above the existing. I've penciled in planters. We still don't see all of the patio, do we? Because this is still blocking part of our view. But what we're beginning to be able to see is proposed new construction relative to the existing. I have left space for title well below the ground line because there will be some dimensions here. At this stage, both drawings have been lightly penciled at guideline weight. I know it's a little hard to see, but this is what guideline weight on vellum looks like. You need this in order to be able to ink over it. You can directly ink right over this. The ink will absorb into the paper beautifully. If you start making these drawings dark, showing the line weight that you would normally see, for example, the ground line would be very heavy. That is going to make it so the ink does not soak properly into the page. The ink won't look nice. The other thing we're going to do when you look at these notes, we're not going to write any notes in pencil first. We're only going to write the guidelines. Very difficult when you're doing your lettering to actually perfectly pencil the notes and then copy them in ink. It works much better to write your notes on a sheet of scratch paper, write the guidelines at guideline weight, and then simply go straight to ink. But these parts we can ink over the pencil guidelines. So keep your drawing very faint. Keep your lead very sharp. HB lead works. That's what this is. I'm assuming you know something about lead holders. We're using an HB hardness 2mm lead to draw all of this in a lead holder. Let's go to the next slide. Inking has begun. This, by the way, is that lead holder. Now, what is this? Check this out. These are the Micron pens we'll use to draw both of these. I made notes here on the pen weights that I used, but what is this? Whenever you're going to ink, you need to actually go ahead and check every single pen tip before you ink. Why? If you forget to cap these pens tightly, they'll start to dry out. You may also find that you have a favorite pen that gets used more than the others. It will start to wear out. If you use these and you mash down on them, you can damage the tip. It will no longer be precise. This is your insurance. Before you set your pens to your paper, test them on a sheet of scratch paper. The 005 is the smallest, then 01, 02, 03, 05, and 08. And they should visually look good. Tiny, not quite so tiny, small, moving towards medium, medium, and dark. And if you don't see these, then you need new pens. So always test it first so you don't wreck your drawing. Now, let's look at this. These are dimensions. This is where the title will go. Look at this. We've got a nice dark ground line. This part of it is free-handed over the guideline at an 08. This part was drawn with a T-square. It's hard-lined because this is all concrete. Concrete foundation, concrete apron in front of existing attached garage. This is free-handed over the guideline because that is gravel and rough ground. This is free-handed over that beautiful guideline from the French curve. That drainage ditch is also road-based gravel, weeds, it's rough. But this is smooth. That's the paved road. What's happening here? This will be a dimension saying 12 feet. There will be a note next to it. 12 foot of pavement in front of the attached garage. This guideline is 65 feet. This is where the property ends. So we have 65 feet from the front of the house to the property line. This dimension tells us there's 80 feet of gravel from the end of the pavement by the driveway in front of the garage to where the paved road starts. These three dimensions are all giving us different information. This one cannot cross over this one. It can point to where this dimension is. It cannot cross this dimension line. Okay, next. Ground line is an 08 over the guideline. The outline of the house, by convention, is a dark line, but not as dark as the ground line. The 05 pen is used for this. These things happening inside the outline are at a lighter pen weight. I would use an 03. I would use an 03 for the aspen trees. You can see 3 trunks. Their canopies all mixed together. So these lines indicate where branches gap and maybe you see some daylight. And then this is the combined canopies. The vertical line and this zigzag curving line, that pen stroke is how I like to show conifers. They're not all shaped like this, but this reads like an upside or right side up triangle, kind of like a Christmas tree. But the curving shape I use reads like the organically shaped branches. So this is my rendering of the conifer, also the aspens. Now this is still rough. This is free-handed, and you see it's even in places stippled. This is gravel. This is still all gravel. But now let's go look up here. This is hardline from the edge of the house all the way to the paved road. So we can now see part of the roof and how it's going to disappear behind the attached garage. We can now see, again, lightly penciled, we've got ramp and railing. We've got planters, vegetation. Let's go to the next slide. Oh, before we do that, let me shrink this. You can screenshot if you'd like, and you can take a moment if you'd like and read the note. This also exists in my course shell for those of you taking my class as a PDF slideshow. So you can read these notes there also. There you go. We now see both are inked. Go ahead and screenshot this if you want to. I'm going to blow it up. So what have we done here? Isn't this something? This we've already talked about. All of the dimensions and notes will be 01. This is an 08 freehanding over the guideline. But now we have the 08 all the way out. Now, in the real world, we got permission to pave flush with the road. So when this drawing is finished, you will see a hard line all the way from the back of the house all the way to the paved road. And then, in fact, the pavement is hardlined also. The ditch will remain rough. That is not changed. It still is road base, weeds, gravel. This is going to stay. This is going to stay. This guy is now inked. This is also 05. Now the 05 runs all the way down to the front edge of that patio where that column is. This, I would do at an 03. The planters are 03. And some of this detail is actually even less. You could go down to an 01 or an 005 if you really want to play with the detail of this. Coming back down here, these dimension lines are 01, so will all the notes be. Let me shrink this back down. And you can grab a screenshot, or you can go in your course shell and look at the PDF. At this point, before you're ready to go straight to vellum as we did here and ink it, you've practiced a lot of drafting. You've done site plans, you've done sections, elevations, you've done a proposed patio plan. So you've had a lot of practice. You now have what you need to finish this. I'm going to invite you to do so. The only notes you need is to call out what these dimensions are, to give this drawing a title. Up here, the only thing you need is a little note right there that says proposed. My suggestion is you give yourself 1/8" guidelines. You write proposed. Here you write existing. And here you can simply write, take this title right there, West Site Elevations, 1/20th scale. These will be 1/4 inch letters. Come down 1/4 inch. Here's your guideline for the underline. Down here, 1/8 inch letters for the scale. West Site Elevations is your title. If you write if you write existing here and you write proposed here, it's all you need. There's basically very few notes on this drawing. What you will see on the existing and the proposed site plans is more information that explains this. By the time in your set of drawings, we are seeing this drawing, the people reading the drawings have already seen site elevations. They've seen, they've seen site plans. They've seen proposed patio plan. They've seen a section of the proposed patio. So they're coming from a lot of information. So when we show these site elevations, they're able to see how the proposed patio with the new ADA surfaces fit into the larger site. That's the purpose. I challenge you to finish this on your own. You know how to add the title. You know to add existing and proposed. And you know that you're going to extend this ground line all the way across, but leave that drainage ditch on the proposed rough. Congratulations! This is your first ink on vellum drawing where you work without an underlay. Well done! I look forward to seeing your version of finishing this drawing in studio. Thank you for watching.